The day I realized I wasn't just talking to a human, I almost died from embarrassment. It started on the floating metropolis of Nova Citadel, orbiting the dying planet Zyra, 9. The city was a maze of chrome towers and transparent skybridges, a playground for the rich and the reckless. I was just a low-tier engineer, fixing grav shifts on the maintenance decks, invisible to anyone who mattered. Until her. She appeared out of nowhere, or maybe I had been blind to her all along. Her skin shimmered like molten silver under the artificial lights, and her eyes, they weren't eyes in the human sense. They were swirling galaxies, vast and infinite. She stepped across the walkway with a grace that defied gravity, and somehow, she made the entire deck feel smaller. I froze. And then I said it. Wow, your butt is amazing. The words left my mouth before my brain could intervene. The moment they landed, time itself seemed to pause. She turned slowly, her galaxy eyes focusing on me, and I swear I felt the weight of an entire star system pressing down on my chest. But that was only the beginning. Her reaction wasn't anger. Nor was it confusion. She tilted her head, an almost imperceptible motion, and a soft, melodic sound escaped her throat. It wasn't laughing. It wasn't human. It was acknowledgement. She stepped closer, and the air around us pulsed, like the decks themselves were alive. You spoke aloud your private thought, she said, her voice vibrating directly in my skull. Most would be ashamed. But you are interesting. I stammered, trying to explain, to apologize, to disappear all at once. But the gravity of her presence pinned me to the floor. I didn't mean, I managed. You meant, she interrupted, every word. Her honesty was disarming. My pulse thundered in my ears. My job, my life, all the careful anonymity I had built in Nova Citadel, it all seemed trivial compared to this one moment. But that was only the beginning. Over the next week, she appeared again. Every time, she watched me work in silence. I learned that her name was Solara. She was not from Zyra, 9. She came from a civilization known as the Veilwalkers, beings who could manipulate gravitational fields, traverse dimensions, and read the subtle currents of thought in lesser species. Humans, apparently, were like open books to her. And I had just screamed one of my chapters aloud. What do you want from me? I asked one night as the city lights reflected in her iridescent skin. To see what is hidden in your mind, she said. And perhaps, to help you see yourself. It sounded innocent. Philosophical, even. But when Solara touched the grav panel I was repairing, the air warped. The city itself seemed to bend toward her, as if acknowledging her power. And in that moment, I realized that being alone with her was dangerous. Not in the physical sense, but in a way that could unravel the very essence of who I was. But that was only the beginning. I started to notice subtle changes. When she was near, my thoughts weren't mine. I would imagine possibilities, hidden fears, secret desires, and they would leak out of me, whispered to the air, and she would smile knowingly. One evening, as the artificial sun set over Nova Citadel, I realized I had been thinking about her every waking second. Not just her body, not just that moment I had blurted out my absurd comment, but her mind, her alien essence, the way she made gravity itself feel like a suggestion. And then came the invitation. She led me through a maintenance hatch I had never noticed, down a vertical shaft that ended in a chamber I couldn't have imagined. The walls shimmered with a liquid-like light. At the center, a device hummed, a containment field holding a pulsating orb of raw energy. This is my core, she said. It sustains my body across light years, across dimensions. And it is failing. I blinked. You're dying? No. Not in the way you understand. I am evolving. And you may be part of that evolution. My mind reeled. I was a human, a nobody in the sprawling metropolis. And yet she had chosen me. Why? But that was only the beginning. The days turned into weeks. We worked together to stabilize the core, my engineering skills combined with her alien technology. And in those endless hours, something unexpected happened. Solara laughed. And her laughter, an impossible, multidimensional sound, echoed inside my chest. She teased me, imitated my clumsy movements, and once, without warning, she flicked a particle of light across the chamber that danced perfectly along the curve of my body. I froze. And then I did the unthinkable, I said it again. Your butt is still amazing. The silence that followed was terrifying. I expected rejection, wrath, an interdimensional exile. Instead, she did something that made my soul twist in ways I had never known possible. She grabbed my face. Not roughly, but with intent. You are unfiltered. Honest. Human. And yet, you do not fear me. Her eyes, the swirling galaxies, focused on me. I saw something there, curiosity, amusement, and perhaps, recognition. And then, she leaned close, so close that her essence mingled with mine, and whispered words I could barely comprehend. You may have just saved my life, in ways you do not yet understand. And then the chamber shook violently. Alarms blared. The orb of energy at the center of the room pulsed erratically, threatening to explode. We had underestimated the strain. Get back! I shouted, but she ignored me. She reached into the energy field, her fingers slicing through gravitational barriers, and I realized she was absorbing the instability into herself. Pain, light, force, it all radiated outward, and yet she endured it. I wanted to help, to pull her back, but the fear in my heart was paralyzing. I could only watch as her body glowed brighter than a dying star. And then, silence. I braced for the worst. The light dimmed. The orb had stabilized. The chamber was still. And she looked at me, alive, radiant, untouched by the catastrophe we had just survived. I trust you, she said simply. You speak what others cannot. You see what others refuse to see. And that makes you extraordinary. I opened my mouth to say something, but words failed me. What could I say? That I had survived, that I had blurted a thought about her body that somehow mattered in the cosmos? That I had fallen for a being who could rewrite the laws of physics with a glance? But that was only the beginning. Over the next cycles of Nova Citadel, we became partners in ways I never anticipated. I helped her understand human emotion, she helped me understand the vastness of reality. And yes, sometimes I looked at her, at that impossibly perfect form, and remembered the first thought I had ever spoken aloud about her. And she would smile, galaxy eyes twinkling, and remind me. Your honesty is rare. Months later, on the observation deck, we watched the distant sun die. The city beneath us shimmered like molten metal. She took my hand, not out of necessity, not out of physics, but because it felt right. Do you know, she said softly, that your thought, spoken aloud, may have saved me from despair? That your unfiltered honesty reminded me that even beings like me need connection? I swallowed hard. I guess I just said what I felt. She laughed, that impossible, multidimensional laughter, and pressed her forehead to mine. Exactly. And that is why I remain. The city hummed around us. The stars outside seemed to lean closer, as if curious. I realized then that sometimes, the smallest truth, the human vulnerability of a single thought, could ripple across dimensions. And in that moment, I understood something impossible. The day I accidentally spoke my thoughts about her body was not shameful. It was revolutionary. She tilted her head, those galaxy eyes searching mine, and whispered. Never stop speaking your truth, no matter how absurd it may seem. For it may be the only thing keeping a universe alive. I laughed, a hollow, joyous sound. And for once, the chaos of Nova Citadel didn't matter. Time itself felt still. Because I had survived the impossible. And somehow, so had she. And as the distant sun flared one last time, I realized, some moments, some truths, are larger than stars. Some confessions are immortal. And that was the moment I knew, beyond doubt, that nothing would ever be the same.